The Big Ten and SEC seemingly have all the power and influence in college sports already. Now it looks like steroids are getting ready to be injected into that power and influence, according to a report by Ross Dellenger that we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you my thoughts on in this episode, which is brought to you by BetUS Online and Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner, attorneys at law. And we're going to have that conversation right after this word from one of those sponsors. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident or fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up, and welcome into this episode of Couz's Corner. Come on in and make yourself comfortable, and let me pour you out this shot of top-shelf college football news and analysis, because that's what we do here. And in this episode, on tap for you is the report from Ross Dellenger that the Big Ten and SEC are getting ready to flex what is already a very powerful muscle or muscles in their authority and influence over college sports. That's right. The Big Ten and SEC, something we've talked about on this show before. You've probably heard it on other shows. You've heard it in multiple reports. It looks like we're getting closer and closer to the Big Ten and SEC having 4 automatic qualifiers into the college football playoff. We're getting closer to the Big Ten and SEC playing each other in the non-conference, and we're getting closer to the Big 12 and ACC basically being told, You're just lucky to have a seat at the table. That's basically where we are when we're getting really, really close to it being official. In this article by Ross Dellenger, which I will link to in the description box, here are some highlights from that article. First off, it talks about how the SEC and Big Ten leaders are going to be meeting in New Orleans this week to discuss the future of the college football playoff. By leaders, I mean athletic directors, are going to be meeting. Big 12 ADs are meeting this week as well, and it's reported that ACC had meetings last week in Charlotte. And then the College Football Playoff Management Committee is supposed to meet on February the 25th, and it would not surprise me if coming out of that February the 25th meeting here in just 8 days from now, as we record this on the 17th, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we get some format changes for 2026 through 2031 out of that meeting. Some actually set in stone changes that will take place starting in the 2026 season. Because in this article, Ross Dellenger mentions they expect a decision in the next few weeks. So this is not something the can's not getting kicked down the road on this very much longer, it doesn't appear. And it looks like the Big 12 and ACC are going to just continue, and the G5 at an even greater level are going to continue to get isolated, pushed away, whatever metaphor you want to use. And a lot of it is their fault, let's be honest, and we'll get to that in a minute. But according to the report by Ross Dellenger, the article, it says the SEC and Big Ten are planning to ask for at least 4 automatic bids each in the college football playoff starting in 2026. Now, if that happens, that means they will be going to a 14 or 16 team model where you will have 4 teams from the Big Ten, 4 teams from the SEC, automatic qualifiers. You'll likely get 2 automatic qualifiers from the Big 12 and 2 automatic qualifiers from the ACC, 1 from the G5, and then Notre Dame will likely get 1 if they're ranked high enough. And if they go to a 16-team model, you may get a couple other at-large bids as well. Now, if I'm the ACC in the Big 12, and heck, even if I'm the G5, I'm telling the SEC and Big Ten, if we do this, then we need to go to 16 teams because I need to make sure there's a chance for me to get a 3rd team in that playoff. In the G5's case, to get 2 teams in. That's what I'm asking for if I'm the Big 12 and the ACC. But the problem is all the power lies with the SEC and the Big 10. They don't have to agree to diddly squat because in this article, it talks about all they plan to do is get consultation from the other leagues and get their thoughts, basically, get their opinions. But at the end of the day, because of a memorandum of understanding that the College Football Management Committee basically gave to the SEC or signed with the SEC and the Big Ten, they gave the SEC and the Big Ten authority to control the governance of the college football playoff. That move now looks like an absolute idiotic move. Now, I know the SEC and Big Ten threatened to take their ball and go home, to do their own thing, to have their own playoff, all this. It looks like they're going to eventually do that anyway. So now you have ceded power to them, probably unnecessarily. And all you have done is delay the inevitable that's going to happen in 5 years anyway. That you're going to see the two, quote-unquote, power two, the SEC, the Big Ten, are going to break away and do their own thing. Now, they threatened to do it before. They threatened to do it beginning in 24, 25, 26, somewhere in there. So the Big 12 and ACC said, oh, we can't have that happen, so we'll give in. We'll give you what you want. We'll give you majority of the revenue from the college football playoff, and we'll give you control of the college football playoff. And now guess what you're losing? You've lost control. You've lost money. Guess what you're losing now? You're losing access. I shouldn't say losing access, but you're granting them a greater access than you are. Now, I've been a proponent, for the most part, of this 4-4-2-2-1-1 model. But the only reason is because I don't think the Big 12 and ACC have a choice. They're not going to be given a choice here. Now, I will try to negotiate something that would benefit me. Like I mentioned, I'm trying to get to 16 so that maybe I got a chance to get a third team in it, in addition to my 2 AQs. But at the end of the day, you've already ceded power to them. You did that the last time. You were giving in to their incessant need to control everything, to the greed of the big and Rock and Rant, friend of the show, part of the College Football Mafia Network. I saw a comment he made on Greg Flugar's show earlier, talking about we shouldn't be mad at Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti. We should be mad at the presidents and the chancellors of these universities. And at the end of the day, he's right. And I know they're all trying to take care of their own universities at the end of the day. But whatever happened to the greater good of all college sports? To the greater good, it's all about what's best for the student athlete. Bull crap. If it was what's best for the student athletes, you wouldn't have them traveling across the freaking country to away games multiple times a year on school nights, mind you, when they still have to study and take tests and make grades. You wouldn't have them playing now what's going to be 17, 18 games in a season, increasing their risk for injury. And yes, I know the players can get paid now. I get all that. But don't give me I don't ever want to hear anybody in any of these power leagues, especially the Power 2, talk about how what's best for the student athlete, because at the end of the day, you don't give a damn what's best for the student athlete. And you're proving it time and time and time again. Because what you care about, you might care about your student athletes at your school, but it's only because they're making you money. That's the only reason you care. And some will say, well, this is all driven by ESPN. Well, in this article, it actually says that some at ESPN are telling leaders that they're actually concerned about this breakaway, about alienating an entire part of the country, basically. I don't think I buy it. I still think they're driving the bus on this thing. I still think ESPN is driving the bus, but still at the end of the day, the university presidents, the chancellors, they have the authority to say no to ESPN when they ask for something, or to Fox or to whoever. And I know they're worried about a TV deal. They need your inventory. Grow a pair. Tell ESPN that you cannot screw up college athletics any more than it already is, and tell them what they want doesn't work for you. How about doing that one time instead of just caving to every one of their demands? How about that? And this comment about ESPN telling college leaders that they're concerned, you know why I think they're letting that leak out is because they're just trying to play nice and make it sound like they really care about the Big 12 and the ACC and the G5 leagues. Because they still want their inventory. They still want their product to fill space on television and on their streaming services. I don't think they really care at the end of the day. I don't think they care. They care about the Big Ten and the SEC. The Big Ten and SEC are caving to them because they only care about their individual institutions, not what's best for the greater good of the entire landscape of college athletics. And that makes me sick to my stomach. And now listen, the Big 12 and ACC are guilty too because they're sort of treating the G5 in the same way to a degree. They're wanting to increase their power and authority and have more power and authority than the NCAA when it comes to governance in college sports as well. So the ACC and Big 12 are not completely innocent here. That's why when you hear some fans say, lawsuits are going to happen, they're not going to sue. Because if the Big 12 and ACC try to sue the SEC and Big 10, then they're going to get sued by the lower level schools, the G5s, maybe the FCS schools, the D2, whatever. You're just opening up a can of worms in that regard if you start filing lawsuits. So I don't see that happen. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say. Now, many administrators in the Big 12, according to this article by Ross Dellenger, are not in favor of this format, this 4-4-2-2-1-1 format. Well, you know what? If you don't like it, then you probably should have thought about that before you ceded control of the format to them a year or two ago. What were you thinking? You should have called their bluff to see if they really would take their ball and go home. That's what you should have done. You should have said, hey, if you want to take your ball and go home and do your own thing, then go do it. We'll do our own thing. ESPN and Fox and whoever's not going to drop the ACC and the Big 12 if that happens. They still need their inventory. Yes, you may lose a little bit of money from what are you going to lose? $6 million a year per team from college football playoff money, maybe? Well, you can offset some of that by doing your own playoff. Again, they're going to want the inventory. Yeah, you may not make $6 million a year, but you might make 3 or 4. Then you have more flexibility to earn revenue in other ways. And let's not even get into private equity. The Big 12 and ACC should have done a private equity deal yesterday. But they keep dragging their feet, kicking the can down the road and waiting. It's going to get to the point where they're going to drag their feet so long that the Big 10 and SEC have overtaken everything, and you're left with nothing. They're going to end up getting the Big 10 and SEC are liable to end up getting a private equity deal before the Big 12 or the ACC does. And that is ludicrous. ACC and Big 12, stop dragging your freaking feet, man, and do something. And Big 12 and ACC fans, and G5 fans even, G6 now, I guess, if you count the pack, please stop watching SEC and Big 10 football games. If you're somebody who likes to bet, by the way, if you do so, I recommend you do it at BetUS. Right now, they're offering a special 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit with promo code YouTube150. That's right. Promo code YouTube150 gets you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit. You get a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits. All of that for up to a grand total of $2,000. Make sure if you do play, though, that you please play responsibly. Now, back to the show. If you're a sports bettor, please stop betting on Big 10 and SEC games. Bet on ACC and Big 12 games and watch those games instead. If the millions of us that are out there that root for these teams that are not in the Power 2, if we let our money speak and put our money where our mouth is, that's the only way we're going to be able to do anything about this. And Big 12 content creators, ACC content creators, G5 content creators, I'm asking you, please, don't even talk about the other 2 conferences, outside of the conference realignment talk, which we kind of have to cover, right? Let's talk up our leagues. Let's highlight our conferences. Let's highlight the teams in our conferences. Screw the Power 2, man. Screw them. Let them do their own thing. We can still have very good football games with the ACC and the Big 12 together, whether it's a merger, whether it's a non-conference scheduling agreement, whatever. There could be some great football, man. West Virginia Pitt, Louisville, Cincinnati, Iowa State, Georgia Tech, Duke, Colorado. I'm just throwing out games here. Those would be some pretty intriguing matchups. Maybe not Duke, Colorado, but you get my point. It's still a pretty good game. Let's stop catering to the big dogs, the P2. Let's support our own conferences, our own teams, and tell them to kick rocks. That's the only way we're going to be able to, and maybe that's not even enough. Maybe that's not enough. But we need to stop feeding the beast, because the beast is starving out our own teams and our own conferences in the meantime. We got to stop feeding into that. So I'm imploring you, please join me in not watching Big Ten and SEC football games. If maybe you're just a fan of college football in general and you watch whatever games, and if that's the case, that's fine. But if you are a passionate fan of any team in the Big 12 and ACC, we need to support our conferences. We have to, or we're not going to survive. At least not the way we know it, as the way we're not going to survive as is. We're going to get relegated. We kind of already have. Right now, they're still allowing us a seat at the table. But if we keep giving them everything they want, we will no longer have that seat at the table. Maybe the ACC and Big 12 are underestimating their power and their own authority. Maybe they're not. I don't know. Maybe they have to take what's given to them, take the scraps, take the crumbs, whatever. But at some point, somebody's got to push back and somebody's got to fight back against the P2. And Jim Phillips and Brett Yormark need to be the guys who do that, in my opinion. G5 can try too, but I think Yormark and Phillips carry bigger sticks, and they need to do something. And they should have never really given them all that power and authority in the first place, in my opinion. But now that they have, you're not putting the can of worms has been opened. As my friend Greg Flugar said, you're not going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. The damage is done. We just got to live with it, suck it up, and just hope that some of our teams can compete in the college football playoff, maybe even win them. And by the way, speaking of the college football playoff, does it make any sense? Because what's going to happen is this change is going to lead to the conferences treating their conference championships differently. They're going to have play-in games now. You're probably going to see the top teams in these conferences getting automatic berths, maybe even the top two. Then you're going to have, 3 through 6 maybe playing in a playoff, or I don't know. I don't know how there's different ways they can do it. But let's just say a 6th or 7th or even 8th place team in the Big Ten or SEC happens to win their way in to the college football playoff. But yet the 3rd place team from the Big 12 can't get in. Now, you tell me how that makes any sense whatsoever. You mean to tell me a team like, I don't know, who I don't even know who was 6th in the Big Ten last year. Let's just say it's Illinois or Iowa. You mean they deserve it more than Colorado or BYU out of the Big 12? Somebody make that make sense to me. It makes no sense to me. But yet they're going to have a shot to play their way in, and the Big 12 and ACC are only going to be able to get their top 2 teams in? Come on. That to me is a bunch of garbage. And if that happens, you're going to see, not only you're going to see teams, with playing games as part of their conference championships, you're probably going to see the SEC go to 9 conference games in order to do the scheduling agreement with the Big Ten, because now they're going to be able to, the non-con losses aren't going to mean as much anymore, right? Because they're still going to be able to get that automatic qualifier so that you can play more attractive non-conference games, make yourself more TV revenue money, bada bing, bada boom. But at the end of the day, the P2 continues to flex their muscle, inject steroids into those muscles to get even stronger. And I think we might have reached a point where there's nothing the Big 12 and ACC can do, and the G5 as well. I'm not sure they can do anything at this point because they've already ceded that power and authority, and now the damage is done. So you better try to negotiate the best you can, but at some point they're just going to leave you behind. The inevitable has been delayed. You've got to do what you got to do to save yourself, even if it means private equity. Because the only way now is you're going to have to start winning some games in the college football playoff, winning national championships to keep your seat at the table. That's the only thing that's going to save you, in my opinion. It's the only thing that's going to save you. What do you think? I want to hear your thoughts on this Ross Dellenger article, which, again, I will leave a link to in the description box. But I do want to hear your thoughts on this topic. If you're a Big 12 fan, ACC fan, are you pissed off at what's taking place now and how the SEC and Big Ten are getting so much power? Are you pissed off about this 4-4-2-2-1-1 model that we may see, or 4-4-2-2-1-3, or whatever it's going to end up being? Do you like that model? What are your thoughts on it? Now, look, I'd rather see the Big 12 get 2 teams in than 1, which is what they got last year. But I just hate the idea of the Big Ten and the SEC getting even more a bigger advantage than they already have. They already have a financial advantage in multiple ways. They now have the governance and power advantage. Now they're going to have the access advantage. At some point, it's got to stop. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. Anyway, I want to know what you think. I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my VIP channel members of this episode. Random shout outs as part of one of the perks. The shout outs are Dane the Surveyor, X Mazzito XC, Overworked Underpaid, Rudy McGraw, and Cody Cutright. Thank you all for your support of the channel. If you want to become a VIP member, hit the join button below or go to my channel homepage, hit the join button beside my profile photo. There's also a link in the description box. Also want to give another shout out to my sponsors, Katz, Kenner, Stone Street, and Buckner, your personal injury or medical malpractice attorneys in West Virginia. They're also licensed in Virginia. Shout out to BetUS Online. Thank them for helping keep the lights on. Ask you to please hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment below and share it with your family and friends. Thanks for tuning in. According to YouTube, you may like this video right here in the corner of your screen. You can also check out this video on the other side of the screen. If you like West Virginia hoops, check out the Hoops from the Hills channel. Thanks for tuning in. Hope the rest of your day's top shelf and Q Country Roads.